The Ford Festiva is a subcompact car that was marketed by the Ford between 1986 and 2002. Festiva was sold in Japan, the Americas, and Australasia. The name Festiva is derived from the Spanish word for festive. It was not related to the similarly sized and named Ford Fiesta. Designed by Mazda using the DAR platform and B-Series inline-four engines, the Festiva continued the trend of Fords built and designed by Mazda for the Asia-Pacific market such as the Laser and Telstar. South Korean first-generation sales began in 1987 under the name Kia Pride, assembled by Kia under license. Australasia and Europe received the first version between 1987 and 1991 as the Mazda 121. After 1991, Australasian sales occurred under the Ford Festiva name, while European sales continued under the name Kia Pride. Kia ended production of the Pride in 2000, although SAIPA of Iran has produced this model in various forms since 2001. This ongoing production has been in parallel to the second-generation Festiva introduced in 1993, sold as the Ford Aspire in North America and Kia Avella in South Korea and other markets. Although these second-generation's models were withdrawn in 2000, a third generation was sold between 1996 and 2002 in Japan as a badge-engineered version of the Mazda Demio. First generation. The first-generation Ford Festiva was designed by Mazda in Japan at the request of parent company Ford. The Mazda-designed and built three-door hatchback was launched in Japan in 1986 under the name Ford Festiva. Festiva utilized the front-wheel drive layout, and its mechanicals consisted of rack and pinion steering, independent front suspension with struts, coil springs and sway bar, and a torsion beam rear suspension. The Festiva was facelifted in 1989, receiving a redesigned grille insert and tail lamp lenses. In Japan at launch, the Festiva three-door was offered in L, L Special, S, Gaia, and Canvas top specification levels. Ford retailed the Japanese market Festiva via the Autorama dealership network. In mid-1986, another Ford partner, Kia Motors in South Korea began production of the Festiva under license as the Kia Pride. Starting from mid-1987 for the 1988 model year, Kia began exports to Canada under the Ford Festiva name, with United States sales commencing by the end of 1987. Ford offered a single 1.3-liter B3 four-cylinder engine and three trim levels, L, L+, and LX. The two base models featured a four-speed manual overdrive transmission, with the LX upgraded to a five-speed unit. A tachometer and tilt steering wheel also featured on the LX trim, as did alloy wheels, remote mirrors, cloth interior seating, and an AM/FM cassette radio. Ford released a minor facelift in North America for the 1990 model year. At the same time, the engine's fuel delivery system transitioned from carburetor to fuel injection, and transmission choices were revised with a standard five-speed manual transmission and optional three-speed automatic. Ford also replaced the manual front seat belts with motorized versions, and fitted manual rear seat belts as standard. For the 1991 model year, the L Plus and LX models were combined into a single GL trim. Optional power steering was deleted for 1992, and the GL gained alloy wheels and the availability of a sport package. The final 1993 model year brought no changes. Over the life of the Festiva in the United States, Kia exported roughly 350,000 units. The agreement with Ford materialized in accordance with Kia's strategy implemented in the mid-1980s to progressively fill the void at the low-cost end of the market, slowly being abdicated by the Japanese brands pursuing more expensive models with higher profit margins. Compared to rival automakers in Japan, and also Europe and North America, Kia's main competitive advantage was its lower-paid South Korean workforce euro, which translated into lower-priced cars. Mazda began producing the Festiva as the Mazda 121 for Australia and Europe in 1987, but this model was never retailed in Japan. The 121 ended production in 1990, and was officially discontinued by Mazda Australia in February 1991. From October 1991, Ford Australia began importing the car as the Ford Festiva from Kia's South Korean production facility. Where the Mazda was sold as a 3-door hatchback, the Ford was sold initially as a 5-door only. From January 1993, a Festiva 3-door, badged Festiva Trio was launched in Australia. Both versions were powered by the overhead camshaft carbureted 1.3-litre B3 engine with the 5-speed manual transmission. A 3-speed automatic was optional for the 5-door. Standard equipment in Australia included an AM/FM radio, tachometer, intermittent windscreen wipers, remote releases for the rear door and fuel tank filler door, with air conditioning available as an option. Ford discontinued the Festiva in the Australian markets in March 1994. Ford Australia's action was paralleled in Europe where Kia started exporting 3- and 5-door hatchback, 4-door sedan, and 5-door wagon variants of the Kia Pride in 1991 under their own name. These additional sedan and 5-door hatchback body variants were also imported from South Korea to Japan in left-hand drive form as the Ford Festiva 5 and Festiva I2, respectively. The 2008 edition of Monash University's used car safety ratings found that the first-generation Festiva provides a worse-than-average level of safety in the event of an accident, in a comparison to other light cars. The safety rating was not calculated solely on the basis of the protection of the vehicle's occupants, with protection for cyclists, pedestrians and drivers of other vehicles included to give a better guide to the total community impact of vehicle safety. Mazda 121 Mazda began selling the 121 as a single 3-door hatchback body variant in 1987 to sit below the larger 323 model. Despite being manufactured there, the 121 was not sold in Japan under the Mazda brand. Australian specification 121s were fitted with a 1.3-litre B3 engine, mated to a 5-speed manual transmission. European markets also received the 55 picoseconds 1.1-litre B1 engine with a 4-speed manual transmission. The 121 was sold in Australia from March 1987. It featured a sliding rear bench seat, which increased cargo space by as much as 180 mm. Levels of trim in Australia comprised the Baseline Deluxe, the Super Deluxe, and the Fun Top, featuring a large electric sliding canvas sunroof. From October 1988, the Super Deluxe was discontinued and replaced by the Shades trim. The European premiere for the 121 was at the Geneva Auto Salon in March 1988. The 1.1-litre version was added in July 1989. Trim levels were L and LX, with an Stradien version also available in the UK. Mazda issued an update for the 121 with a new grille insert, body-hued exterior trim, redesigned instrumentation and interior seats and trim. The Mazda variant was discontinued in 1991, being replaced by a new generation Mazda 121, based on the Japanese market AutoZam review. Kia Pride The Kia Pride badged version of the Festiva was manufactured in South Korea by Kia Motors from March 1987 to January 2000. Prior to its South Korea market release, exports as the Festiva had begun in December 1986 to Japan and the United States. The Pride was sold in 4-door sedan form, as well as 3- and 5-door hatchback forms and 5-door wagon body styles. Until the Mazda 121 was replaced in late 1990, Kia-badged cars were only exported to certain tertiary markets. The Pride was replaced in 2000 by the Rio. The Pride launched in the United Kingdom in June 1991, fitted with both the 1.1 B1 and 1.3-litre B3 engines. The 1.1 was only available as a 3-door in the basic L trim. There was also a panel van 2-seater version in the UK and some other markets. Fuel injection appeared on the 1.3-litre engined models in November 1994, referred to as the 1.3i. At this time, the 1.1-litre version was deleted. December 1995 saw the start 1.3i 3-door replace the L, but from June 1999, the entry-level 3-door was again renamed S with the higher level 3 and 5 doors known as the SX. Production ended during 2000. SAIPA built the Kia Pride in Iran under license using up to 85% local parts as the SAIPA Pride from 2001 to 2005. Since 2003, a new 5-door liftback model based on the Pride called the SAIPA 141 has been produced, while continuing to sell the Iranian version of the Pride under the names SAIPA Saba GLXI, SAIPA Nazim Safari, and SAIPA Nazim Dmi. Compared to these versions, the SAIPA 141 features revised rear styling with a longer liftback tail, and different interior design. The SAIPA 141 is sold in Venezuela under name Terpial. Another variant, known as the SAIPA 132 began production in 2008 and differs from the Saba with its revised front and rear styling. Although never mass-produced, the company introduced a pickup body style in 2008 under the name SAIPA Pickup, with a 500-kilogram payload. The platform engine of the Kia Pride also formed the basis for the Iranian PK and new PK models, which utilize Renault 5 bodies. In Iran, Prides continue to be the most common car with approximately 40% on vehicles in that country being a Pride-derived SAIPA. Arab American vehicles manufactured the Pride in Cairo, Egypt, circa 1998. Jiangsu Ueda Auto Works began assembly of the Pride in 1997. The sedan was called the Ueda Kia Pride YQZ6390, the hatchback either YQZ6370 or YQZ7141. Chinese production ended in December 2003. Second generation, the second model Ford Festiva was jointly developed between Kia and Ford, retaining most of the drivetrain of the previous model with a more rounded body style. This new Festiva was slightly longer, wider, more aerodynamic, and suspended by McPherson struts in the front and a torsion bar axle in the rear. While it was sold in certain markets as a second-generation Festiva, Ford renamed it the Aspire in North American markets, where the 5-door model was offered for the first time. In South Korea, the car was badged Kia Avella. The sedan version was mainly restricted to the South Korean market, although it was also available with Festiva badging in Taiwan. Depending on the market, some retained the SOHC, throttle body injected motor, while others received an engine with a DOHC cylinder head and MPI also designed by Mazda. These engines were B3 Edgy, 1.3L fuel-injected 8-valve i4 making 63 horsepower at 5,000 rpms and 74 lb-aft at 3,000 rpms, B5 Edgy, 1.5L fuel-injected 8-valve i4 making 88.4 horsepower at 5,000 rpms and 99 lb-aft at 4,000 rpms. Transmission options comprised a 5-speed manual transmission, although all models could be optioned with a 4-speed automatic. Australian and US models were equipped with a 3-speed automatic. In 1997, the Festiva received a new front bumper with an oval grille, reshaped headlamps, and other minor changes. The Aspire was dropped from the Ford range in the United States after 1997. The second-generation Festiva continued to be sold in Australia until 2000 when it was replaced by the Ford car. Australian second-generation Festivas have US side marker light cutouts on each side of the vehicle at the front and rear. Instead of housing orange reflectors lights at the front sides and red reflectors lights at the rear sides, there are non-lit orange reflectors at all 4 locations. These redundant reflectors, coupled with the orange side indicator repeater, make for a unique side profile. Kia developed their following model, the Kia Rio, completely independently, and finished their relationship with Ford. Like the first generation, the 2008 edition of the Used Car Safety Ratings by Monash University in Australia found the second series Festiva to provide a worse-than-average safety protection level in the event of an accident. In the 2010 edition, the scoring was downgraded to very poor. Ford Aspire The Ford Aspire was sold in North America from 1994 to 1997. It was the replacement for the Ford Festiva. It was the first car in its class to have dual airbags standard and anti-lock brakes optional. It came in 2- and 4-door body styles, both hatchbacks. The 2-door was available in base and SE trim while the 4-door was only available in base trim, The SE model offered a sporting package that consisted of fog lights, rear spoiler, alloy wheels, blue-face instrument cluster with tachometer, and upgraded interior trim. The Aspire had very few options for the base model: cassette player, automatic transmission, rear defrost and wiper, alloy wheels, and a comfort and convenience package that had several minor interior upgrades. Due to slow sales, the SE model was dropped after 1995 along with all of its optional equipment. The base model also lost its optional alloy wheels and rear wiper, making the Aspire a true stripper of a car. The performance with the 5-speed was acceptable, but the automatic was slower with 0–60 times at 16.2 seconds. Power steering was only available with a 5-door automatic. The Aspire was given a facelift in 1997 with redesigned front and rear bumpers, a new radio, and new seat facings. In August 1997, Ford announced the Aspire would be discontinued due to slow sales. The last one rolled off the assembly line on September 26, 1997. The Aspire's main competitors were the George Metro, Hyundai Accent, and Toyota Tercel. Kia Avella The version of the Festiva sold in Korea, from March 1994, was badged Kia Avella. Avella was a made-up portmanteau word, combining Avio and Ella. Available in sedan, 3-door and 5-door hatchback body styles. Sales of the Avella totaled 115,576 in 1994 but dropped to only 27,850 in 1998. The Avella was primarily intended for export markets carrying Ford badging, as South Korean customers tended to prefer sedans over hatchbacks. It was sold in a very few export markets with Kia badging, such as Malta. The Avella was discontinued in 1999, it and the Pride were collectively replaced by the Kia Rio in 2000. All Avellas came standard with 13-inch wheels, a 4-speaker stereo, heated rear glass, anti-lock brakes, driver's side airbag, and door impact beams. Optional equipment included air conditioning, power locks, power mirrors, power windows, folding rear seats, dimming interior mirror, a tachometer, and aluminum wheels. The Avella was the first South Korean car in its class to offer dual airbags and ABS brakes. The Delta version received a slightly reworked front end from its hatchback siblings. While the standard Avellas received the 73 picoseconds 1.3-liter Mazda B3 engine, higher-spec versions were available both with an SOHC and a more powerful DOHC version of the 1.5-liter B5 engine. The 105 picoseconds DOHC version was only available in the 4-door Avella Delta. 5-speed manuals as well as 3 or 4-speed automatic transmissions were available. Third generation. Sales of the second-generation Festiva ended in 1996 for the Japanese market, being replaced by Generation 3 a badge-engineered Mazda Demio. Known as the Ford Festiva Mini Wagon, the Japanese-only model range consisted of a single 5-door hatchback body style available with either a 1.3 or 1.5-liter engine. Transmission options were a 3-speed or 4-speed automatic and a 5-speed manual. Production continued until Mazda ceased manufacture of the equivalent Demio in 2002. References. External links, media related to Ford Festiva at Wikimedia Commons.